Take a moment right here, feeling like it's out gear. Driving towards the sun with a rose and a gun. Feel the wind in my hair, going nowhere I swear. Like an outlaw on the run, dangerous but it's so fun. Running, running, no. Hold on, don't let go. Running, running, no. Keep running.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Risen Esports Champions League. We're here on the secondary stream for a matchup between Barrage and Mirage. They sound very similar. I'm going to try my best to enunciate, but hopefully it won't be too confusing. My name is Coleslaw. Joining me on this cast here is Random Minion Caster, or RMC for short. And RMC, we've got a really exciting matchup here between two undefeated 3-0 teams looking to punch a ticket into playoffs. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, super excited considering that I finally got my tongue around Mirage as a tongue twister here in preparation for this game, and that we are getting to cast two teams that just took out a new completely out of the winning brackets here.
Yeah, these two teams are at the top of this bracket. There are only 4 undefeated teams left in the tournament, so we've got a clash of giants here. Barrage kind of doing it the way that everyone expected them to be. They were seeded as the 4th team. They look extremely strong on paper. They haven't even dropped a game this tournament, so seeing them here, not as much of a surprise as Mirage, who on the other hand were seeded a little lower. They weren't exactly not expected to succeed, but they were down at 13 on the seeding. They weren't really quite as well known, and yet here they are undefeated. They took down Anu yesterday, the Anu main roster, on the back of some excellent carry performances from DNA, from Meech, from Roy. Dragoon on the Darius was also unstoppable, and Hunter on Nunu, as well as a couple other picks. Just making everyone surprised. We really didn't expect them to win that matchup yesterday. And now that they have, you kind of have to ask, how good are Mirage? What's going to be the implications of that on this matchup?
Well, Coleslaw, I can tell that you're obviously very high on the Mirage train, because in honor of Hunter yesterday, I see that you're wearing yourself a Nunu shirt here to support that jungle pick, and maybe we get to see it again. And, you know, that's the thing with League of Legends that I love so much, especially this new Swiss format that we're running here, is the fact that underdogs get great momentum, and sometimes momentum can really swing things. So despite the fact that Barrage haven't dropped the game, and that as a color caster, I have to respect that data and kind of think that they're the favorites coming in, I've been in enough Risen games to know that the underdog coming up, they tend to break this trend, and maybe Barrage will get their first loss. Maybe not the lost series, but their first lost game tonight.
Yeah, I think that if you were going to put your bucket in a team to finally kind of show Barrage what's up, you'd think Mirage has decent odds to do it. They have some carry players. They can win through top side. They can win through bot side. There are chances. But it's going to be on this Mirage roster to really prove themselves. One series doesn't necessarily make a team a powerhouse. You know, we know that they can go toe-to-toe with the top teams. But today is where they try to take it from one series of just what some people may call a fluke and establish it and extend it and prove that it's not just a fluke, it's a trend, that they really can compete against different rosters at this top level of the amateur, and they can flex on these people and make things happen. So I'm really looking forward to this series. I think a betting man probably has to say you'd still go with Mirage just because of how they look stronger on paper going in. But my hope and my bet is that Mirage is going to make things interesting, if not just prove themselves to be right where they belong at this top of the bracket.
Yeah, and to be fair to Mirage, I think at this point, this is day 4 of the tournament here, of the main tournament. So there is a trend. Both these teams have won 3 straight series here, and maybe Mirage wasn't as clean as Barrage, but they've definitely done their work to get here. And you know what? If I was a betting man, I'd be broke right now, Coleslaw, because I'd bet on a lot of teams that didn't make it yesterday here. You know, like teams like Anu, like Solafide as well. So at this point, you know, Mirage has made me give up my betting ways for now. So I ain't gonna bet on this game. I'm just gonna straight up cast it here. But for sure, a lot of, you know, as a color caster, a lot of really great matchups. And I do feel like Mirage actually, just the way their roster has worked out, kind of gives them favorable matchups here with Dragoon in that top side, with that Darius, with that Alawi. If he picks a lane dominant champion, you know, I've heard a lot about Pi Cake Lord in the top lane. Pi can't win, Pi can't lose, you know, Pi can lane, Pi can't lane. That coin flip there, we've seen that if Dragoon gets a lead, he can definitely run away with it. So that's a favorable matchup. And the bot lane as well. Gorka and Winter play really strong bot side, but Meech and Roy last night, they just soaked up pressure. In game 1, game 2, they looked a lot better than I expected going up against the new. So with these sort of favorable matchups here, I almost feel like Mirage on a good night can play up to Barrage's level and maybe just flat out exceed them here.
Yeah, I think I agree. And I told you before this started that Roy's performance in game 1 in particular, I think was the strongest carry performance I've seen so far in this tournament. On Thresh, he was just unstoppable. The hooks didn't stop landing. The flays didn't stop interrupting major dashes, major abilities. We saw him deny an Ornn ult in a dragon fight that ultimately gave them the edge to win the game. We saw him just hooking and catching pick after pick after pick. And I think with these kind of really powerful picks that Barrage has, it's going to be interesting for the strategy of pick and ban, because Barrage has to worry about a lot of different things. We know that DNA likes playing these more supportive mids. We saw the Lulu, we saw the Seraphine. And I think if I was Barrage, I would want to try and force DNA onto something maybe a little less comfortable, something maybe a little more aggressive, to see if you can't kind of squeeze something out of this mid lane matchup. APA, probably the stronger player in that lane. He is one of the top amateur mid laners. We all have heard his name at this point. And he has so many different pocket picks that he's almost impossible to shut down. So I would like to see them try to exploit that. But if you're targeting mid, if you're trying to exploit this matchup and get DNA onto something less supportive, then you're letting through the Darius, you're letting through the Thresh or the Leona. You have to worry about this Aphelios. So there's lots and lots of picks. You can only get those first 3 bans. And I think that creates an interesting dilemma for Barrage. So I'm curious to see how they're going to address that and what they're going to do to try and get this ball rolling.
Yeah, definitely got to start prioritizing your lanes, you know, who you want to target. But the same thing kind of goes for Mirage here when you look at Barrage. I love the fact that you bring up APA, because you kind of always have to bring up APA when he's on a team here. Like you mentioned, that champion Ocean that he has. I'm personally kind of excited because I know LS dropped, you know, a tweet earlier today. Our producer Gala, you know, was mentioning to me the fact that Aurelion Sol Moonstone Renewer build is, you know, something that can come in with that Staff of Flowing Water. APA is not a fan of it here, but he is supposed to be the Aurelion Sol expert. I was hoping we might get to see him play it here. Maybe we'll get a chance to see it, and maybe Mirage doesn't want to take a risk that, you know, that Aurelion Sol build comes in as well. And besides our APA, they have to look who else they want to target, because so far Fnatic for Barrage in the jungle has been a huge playmaker for their team here. And his Olaf is a nightmare. He's gotten to play it every day so far, at least once, before it usually either gets banned or he decides to go something else. So are they going to ban out Fnatic? Because I feel like a lot of Barrage early game success comes through their jungle.
Yeah, and this jungle matchup is interesting because I think it's 2 very different styles, where we have Fnatic basically. He is the king of the meta. He's playing Olaf. He's playing Graze. We haven't really seen him put too much time into any other champion, because why would you, you know? Like, Olaf and Graze exist in League of Legends. What's the point of going to any other champions? Whereas you have Hunter, on the other hand, who we saw pick Skarner and Nunu last night. Not really picks that we've seen many other teams adopting or adapting. So I think it's up to Mirage. It's going to be up to Hunter to adapt and try and mold to this style. In any case, we have the draft getting going here. The bans are starting to fly off the table. And no surprise, Darius gone. First pick, he's out of there. And Talia banned right back by Mirage. Let's get rid of these signature champions. Throw them out of the way. We don't want any part of them.
I mean, you don't want to take a risk on Dragoon's Darius there. Yeah, you don't see it a ton in pro play, but that's because you don't see Dragoon a ton in pro play. And now that he is here, you definitely want to take it out. And the Aphelios ban as well. It's a bit interesting because despite Meech's propensity towards the champion, teams haven't really targeted the Aphelios that much. Instead, they've opted to try and play it into Meech a couple of times. So I like the fact that they're now taking it off so we can see what else Meech can bring to the table here.
Yeah, I like these bans. These look like they're well-scouted bans that are kind of looking at what Mirage has succeeded with. Dragoon on Darius is horrifying and it's very scary. They've shown that they're comfortable blind picking it at times, so you just get rid of it. Aphelios, it was what they put Meech on all 3 games. They're going to force Meech to show something else. With blue side, you have the luxury of being able to first pick Jhin if it doesn't get banned. So banning Aphelios and first picking Jhin seems like a pretty reasonable course of action. They're also going to ban away the Nunu. They do not want to see it for Hunter. Sad news for my Nunu shirt, but that's the way it's going to go. So from Mirage, we see an Olaf and a Seraphine ban. So that means first pick here, you'd expect, I mean, it has to be either Graves or Jhin, right?
I think they can afford to just go for the Graves here because I'm not even sure if Meech plays Jhin. What he has shown is, the Samira, as well as the, I believe it's the Kai'Sa, who's currently, one of the top ADC meta picks. So Meech doesn't show a preference towards Jhin at all. I think the Kai'Sa pick, that serves the double purpose of kind of taking it away from Meech as well. So I love the fact that they do that instead of targeting early Jhin.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's interesting. She's maybe a notch below Jhin, but she is one of those top of the meta carries. And it's basically a bet for Mirage saying, you're not going to pick Jhin. And they immediately are proven correct when we see this Xayah locked in for Mirage. Could you explain that pick to me? It's not something I think we see too often either.
Xayah is actually something that's been coming sort of into meta here at the beginning of season 11, and the reason why we're starting to see a bit more Xayah with or without Rakan here is the fact that Xayah does really well against dive compositions. And when you see a Kai'Sa picked up, when you see a Samira picked up, you can be fairly confident that that composition is going to want to go in, and Xayah is going to be very safe coming out. So while she does struggle a bit in lane and in the early sort of skirmishes, once she gets a couple of items under her belt, once she can scale up a little bit more, it's a really solid ADC which can stop and engage dead in its track and just wreck team fights as well. So whether or not it works, we'll have to see, because it is a rough laning phase, but Meech, a Aphelios player, he's no stranger to rough laning phases.
Yep, and so with the Xayah, they're going to take the Leona. They want to deny that away, get Roy back onto one of those big engage picks. He was looking very good on it game 2 yesterday. So, and that means that Barrage have the freedom to lock in this Graves as we thought. They might have gone for it first pick, but Hunter not going to prioritize it. So that's going to donate that back over to the side of Barrage. And we see the A-Soul hover, would be a blind A-Soul. There would be the mid lane counter pick. So they're not going to go for it. They're going to take Alistar instead. And a snap pick response from Mirage. They want the Syndra and they're locking it in on the spot.
Yeah, playing with my heart there. The Aurelian Soul, there's still a chance. Actually, no, there isn't. That's a Syndra. They're not going to pick the Aurelian Soul into the Syndra. But the Leona and Syndra picks for Mirage are interesting. Leona is actually Roy's most played support this tournament here, despite his the reputation he has on Thresh. It's Leona who he's really been defaulting to here, and the Syndra is actually the most banned champion against DNA. For all that we've seen DNA play a lot of Victor, some supportive champions as well, it's the Syndra that teams fear. And now that it's through, it's also a very, very safe blind pick mid. So love to see it. It's great against Kai'Sa. It's great against Graves as well. And for the side of Barrage, they're going to have to probably pick, a strong mid laner to try and be able to suppress DNA here.
Yeah, and the nice thing about this Syndra pickup is that it does deny the A-Soul, as you said. So by locking in Syndra, you basically free up a ban that doesn't need to go towards A-Soul. So I like that. I think it's a clever pickup. And because it is what you want to have DNA on, I think that's a good comfort pick. And I think that's an excellent strategy. We see the bans coming in now. Mirage have snapped away Camille and Ziggs, getting rid of the Camille top, getting rid of that ranged, safe Ziggs mid that leans well into Syndra. Barrage, on the other hand, while they have their Graves, they decide they're going to try and pinch Hunter's pool a little more. Some unconventional bans relative to what you might be used to seeing, but good bans for Hunter.
These are the champions that Hunter has shown that he's played throughout the league here. I do believe the only champion that is still available that he has already shown so far is the J4 from day one. And with this composition, it's not actually a bad pickup at all. They're actually just going to straight up lock it in here. So they're not showing anything new. They don't have to. They've got themselves, a solid team fighting composition that can now both engage as well as soak up and engage here.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because it's turning into a bit of a wombo composition here, where you have this Leona, you have this Jarvan, you have this Syndra. That's lots of kind of area lockdown in to an extent with the Solar Flare, the Scatter the Weak, the Cataclysm. You can kind of put people in a pen and keep them there. The issue, I think, is that you're seeing a lot of mobility on Barrage. You can have the Graves Dash out, Kai'Sa can ult out, Alistar headbutts out. So Cataclysm, not the highest of value things, but it is still a comfort pick here for Hunter. It is still a fine jungler. He doesn't have a terrible time into Graves. So that pick will work. It's answered with a Karma mid and then a blind pick Aatrox top.
So APA, not wanting to show anything special, has played the Karma twice already here. So nothing special. Looks like they're going to rely quite heavily onto PCL as well as Gorica to be the primary carries for their team, and it's a solid choice here. Not to mention, I really like the Aatrox pickup because once you put a Cataclysm on an Aatrox there, it's not like you've caught the Aatrox and, you know, we can pile everybody in, because anybody who goes into that Cataclysm has now entered a small little world which Aatrox is about to end. So it kind of counters the Cataclysm really, really well and turns that pick from Hunter against him in these team fights. So really solid pickup. I will say, though, that Dragoon has experience against the Aatrox, did play against Viper's Aatrox last night. It wasn't the Darius, and now he'll be on the Gangplank. So I want to see if the Gangplank coming out from Dragoon here is going to be anywhere near as scary as the Darius.
Yeah, and the Gangplank is an interesting counterpick to Aatrox because it's basically conceding pressure in the lane. Gangplank doesn't do a great job of actually bullying Aatrox, but he can farm relatively safety with farm from relative safety with the oranges, with the parlay. He can kind of trade, get grass procs if he wants, and just stay back and scale. And that's really the big idea here, is that if you get an engage onto any of these Barrage carries, you're dropping so many just large circles on top of them. If you get a Solar Flare into a Cannon Barrage, into a Scatter the Weak, you're going to kill someone. That's never going to fail unless you're targeting the Alistar for some ungodly reason. So it's a bit of a wombo teamfight comp here from Mirage. I like the idea, and it's going to play to their strengths of kind of this skirmishing mid-game fight around dragon type composition. My concern is that they're really, really reliant on being able to engage these fights. If they're the ones starting the dragon, if they're the ones kind of trying to make something happen, and Mirage is playing back and playing respectfully, and then bringing the fight to Mirage, things might break down a little bit.
Right. And the other side of the issue as well for Mirage is that you've got a really strong mid lane jungle duo. Syndra, Jarvan, that's a kill lane. And instead of trying to match the pressure, APA just went Karma to soak it, but your side lanes are not that strong. Aatrox, as you mentioned, is supposed to be the winner in the Aatrox Gangplank matchup. In your bot lane, Alistar is considered one of the original counters to Leona, and Xayah isn't terribly strong either. So Kai'Sa, Alistar for the side of Barrage should be getting bot side pressure. So your ability to control objectives is kind of dicey as well. Even at level 6, you might not actually want to win that fight, whether or not you start the dragon up, whether or not you've got dragon pressure on you. Mirage might not want that. And if they start losing these early objectives here, Barrage can look to simply just outscale, punish on the sides, eventually win the early and mid game as well. That's definitely an option for them here.
Yeah, and I think as well, it's the disengage here is that Barrage playing right, holding onto their cooldowns correctly, can kind of pose a problem to this Mirage engage. Karma is a really strong pick because it's flexible. If you get behind or you kind of don't want to fight, then you can use that Mantra Shield to give everyone a massive shield and a ton of movement speed to just leave. If a fight's not working out, you can just zip right out of there. And if you start winning or you're on the front foot, then you start using that Mantra Q, you start poking, you do tons of damage, you zone people away. And I think that means that the flexibility makes a lot of sense here. On top of that, Alistar Headbutt without Pulverize can really just say, Jarvan, you're trying to EQ in? Nah, you're trying to EQ out, buddy. See you later. And that can really put a damper on any kind of engage. It can get rid of a Leona, as you said. It can get rid of a Gangplank who's running into your backline. So there's a lot of disengage tools here from Barrage. And Kai'Sa, of course, with the stealth and with her ultimate, can be hard to lock down. If the Aatrox is diving in or the Graves is diving in, Kai'Sa can follow up. You know, if the Jarvan and Leona go in onto the Barrage backline, the backline can go in onto the Mirage backline and say, your front line is over here. Well, I'm way behind them now. And that can be an issue as well. So I think it's a dynamic draft from Barrage. I think they've answered kind of this more straightforward teamfight composition, but it is going to come down to execution. You do need to hold onto that Karma ult, onto that Kai'Sa ult, onto the Alistar headbutt. If you find yourself trapped with cooldowns not available, that's when things start going from bad to worse to catastrophic. And so Barrage is going to need to play very respectfully and going to need to play around these key engage tools from Mirage.
The skill ceiling here from Mirage's composition is so high. If you play it right, Mirage basically can't really do much if everything goes to perfection. But again, it has to go to perfection. It's a lot to ask for, and it has to go right every single time. In team fights, my eyes are going to be drawn to Gorica over and over again here for Barrage, because if Gorica goes down early, I don't think Barrage has the damage they need to win fights with. But if Gorica can survive the initial burst, if they don't get blown up by the unleashed power from DNA here, then with that mobility you're talking about, with that Karma, with the double support that we often see Meech actually benefit from here, Gorica can just shred everybody. There's not a lot of people who will survive the concentrated attention from the Kai'Sa picks as well. So definitely gonna have to see whether they can catch Gorica.
So I think we'd be saying that the onus is kind of on Barrage to prove that this draft is worth it. These are some very talented players. They have the ability to do so, but we can speculate all we want. We won't ever learn who's actually going to do it until we get onto the Rift. So we're going to need to take a quick break while we wait for the spectator delay to wind down, make sure we're all synced up, and then we'll hit the Rift for game 1 here in just a few moments. Don't go anywhere. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Summoner's Rift here for game number 1 of round 4 of the Risen Esports Champions League here between Barrage on blue side and Mirage on red side. We've got two teams fighting for a bye in the first round of the playoffs. Winner punches a ticket into the playoffs and gets that bye. Loser has a do or die match tomorrow just to get a ticket into the quarterfinals. The stakes are high. Both these teams want it. They're on the rift to fight for it. We've got a level 1 where they are on opposite sides of the map. My name is Coleslaw. Joining me on this cast here is Random Minion Caster. And man, what was that level 1?
I mean, the teams sound the same, they look the same, and apparently they play the same because both of them are looking for level 1s. They just kind of picked the wrong side there, and they're still kind of roaming around a little bit for the side of Barrage. They won't find anything, but you can tell how eager the teams are from this start here. They're not messing around. They want that level fight, both of them.
Yeah, and you see the teams both being cautious walking back into their jungle. They couldn't find anyone. They didn't spot anyone on a ward. So they're thinking maybe they're in our jungle. You see both sides of the map having to take it hesitantly. As it turns out, nothing going on just yet. I think the most important thing is that we see Meech and Roy sitting in this bush to go for the level 1 cheese. Gorka and Winter gonna walk into an unpleasant surprise here with Fnatic so close. Maybe it's not going well. The stun is going to go down on a Winter. They'll take their poke and they'll back away. So just an easy little advantage to get some health off of that Alistar.
Cheeky move. I mean, generally, Alistar is considered the counter to a Leona here. So I like the fact that they kind of turn it on its head because whoever sees the other first is the one who's going to get an immediate advantage. And that little advantage is going to mean a lot later when Roy wants to start playing a little bit more aggressively on that Leona.
Yeah, well, you see that advantage kind of disappearing very quickly there as they take another trade that doesn't work out for Mirage. So health bar is now about even on these supports. You actually see health pots gone for Roy, so it's going to be a scrappy lane. There's going to be a lot of fighting, and there's a lot of cowbell going on down there too.
I love that skin, man. Those cowbells from Winter there. But you know what? I actually don't think we're necessarily going to see a ton of action here without jungle pressure in most of these lanes. In that bot lane, you know, despite having the Leona, you've also got the Xayah, so not necessarily a ton of kill pressure early here without a lot of poke. And in the mid lane, Syndra versus Karma, that's a tough one as well for DNA because Karma is just going to be able to shield up so much of that damage, maybe heal some of it back up. Top side, maybe we get some kill pressure because Dragoon and Pykick Lord PCL up here, you know, the Aatrox can potentially bully out a Gangplank, and both these players are known to play quite aggressively in lane. Generally, we don't see them just farm up to the late game either. So I'm kind of hoping that maybe we get some action to the top lane, if not just track the junglers, because wherever they gank, that's where we're going to see some action.
Yeah, and of course with Fnatic on this Graves, you don't expect him to be putting out too much pressure early. He's one of those more power farm oriented junglers. You can see him already up at 20 CS, gonna get a crab as well. So they're kind of actually both farming. Hunter pathing towards bot lane, way too shoved and way too early to go for a dive. So nothing really gonna happen from these junglers levels 1 through 3 here, and it's just gonna be a farm game.
Yeah, and I think it's a good call from Barrage here because while we say that Fnatic likes to farm up a little bit more on junglers, Hunter does it. Hunter just wants to gank, man. Like we saw his Nunu game. That's what, you know, kind of made me a bit of a fan of Hunter here, is the way he played the Nunu, just constantly looking for ganks while managing to consume stuff and keeping up his farm. So I think the fact that we saw APA actually go back to base so early here, despite, you know, still being quite healthy, having a decent amount of mana as well. That was just him, you know, not wanting to overshove too much, let the wave reset. The bot lane's in a safe position as well. So they're just going to play a bit more carefully till Fnatic's ready to start getting into things and matching Hunter in these fights.
Yeah, well, you see this freeze set up in the bot lane here. Winter did an excellent job of ensuring that freeze would be set up. So Winter and Gorka now farming very safely in front of their turret. And with Fnatic down here, it could be danger for Mirage if they stay pushed up. They do have a ward exactly where they want it, and it has been cited by Barrage, so nothing going to come from that.
I think for right now, Gorka and Winter are probably just saying, you know what, like we don't need the ganks. We're okay just freezing it here, slowly farming up, because the Kai'Sa will hit the power spikes a lot sooner than the Xayah will, and so they can wait for that. They don't have to be risky necessarily about it. Instead, we are seeing Fnatic, you know, kind of roaming around the mid lane, and we are going to get a bit of an altercation here in the mid lane.
Here's a gank. You see DNA gets rooted down. Fnatic throws out the smoke screen to try to get onto this Syndra. They're taking him low. The Scatter of the Weak is going to stun one, but not two. APA flashes, DNA flashes back, gets out to safety. It's a trade of summoner spells. A little more pressure for Barrage, but well played by DNA to get out of that one. No problem.
was flawlessly played there. The patience on that flash, waiting, till that very last second when APA kind of moved forward there. The flashes were almost completely in sync. It's great to see, but they can just repeat this gank now, and so can Hunter, because APA's flash is down as well, and the wave is not necessarily in a great position, though DNA doesn't have any intention to try and freeze. They're just going to shove out because APA is not in lane, it looks like.
Yep, and so it's going to result in some farm. You see DNA has to burn teleport to get back, but that's really the only big difference maker. APA going to be able to walk back to lane to catch this wave, so you're going to see a TP advantage as the product of that. There's actually a second TP advantage in top lane with Dragoon using it to get back to lane as well, so PCL under a lot of pressure, but with the teleport saved, there's this potential for a big cross-map play from Barrage if they take advantage of these two summoner advantages. And that could be a disaster for this first dragon. It's kind of up to Mirage to respect that and avoid it if possible, but you see Hunter is actually already soloing that dragon right now. He's doing it, he's not spotted, there's no ward that sees him, and with the Graves ganking top, it's going to be on Dragoon instead. He burns the flash to get out of that first Q from Aatrox, and there is no more follow-up, so it costs a teleport, and it's going to cost a dragon, so Barrage not really able to capitalize all that hard. Hunter secures it finally, and Mirage off to a solid start here in the early game.
PCL using the teleport to get back into lane. We were talking about the potential for trying to make a cross map play. They decided not to. Instead, they're looking to try and revisit DNA. They're committing a lot of resources. This Winter actually ran up as well. Not going to lose too much though, because Gorica was just coming back to lane. But we're not finding any real big action so far, and it's because the teams have been playing so well, knowing and respecting, despite actually not having necessarily a ton of vision. DNA didn't have a lot of vision on that particular gank coming from both sides there. It's just their spider sense is tingling there, and DNA just backed right off at the perfect time. So with the way the teams are playing right now, I feel like we're going to get this building of tension throughout the early game. They're playing very conservatively, and maybe the first fight we see might actually just be a full-on fight rather than these small ganks or skirmishes here.
Yeah, I think it's worth pointing out on that play that I don't think Mirage had any vision of Fnatic coming in on that, but they did know that Winter had disappeared, so DNA could sniff out Alistar's not bot lane. That means I might be in trouble, and he backs up, and it kind of gives away the Graves gank at the same time, and you have DNA playing really respectfully, and he doesn't have to burn anything. He's flashless, and he's aware of it, and I think that's really awesome to see. It's something we've seen teams struggle with, where, players get their flash burned and just keep pushing anyway, and it leaves them just an easy target, but that's not the case here.
That was then, and this is now. And now, if you look at the vision right here, you can see that a lot of it is Barrage favored. They've cleared out most of the vision throughout the river in both directions here. So it's Barrage's map to play, and Mirage no longer has control. And that's going to let Fnatic solo this Herald here perfectly safe. He's got a bit of lane priority. PCL is pushing up the top. APA is pushing out the mid, kind of pushing out, slow pushing out the mid a little bit here. He's got the minions on his side.
Well, here's an engage onto Dragoon in the top lane. PCL pops the World Eater. He's going to go. He's trying for it. Flashes underneath the turret. Gets the first blood. Gets the kill. Fears the minions on the way out. And that's what you want to see if you're a Barrage. PCL taking advantage of that flash. Here's a gank on mid lane. An excellent scatter of the week onto Winter to punish him. And now they're actually going onto them. This Alistar has pulled turret aggro because of his E, and he's going to go down to DNA. It's a return kill. Really well done by Hunter to pull that aggro onto the Alistar. Make sure he goes down. The answer, of course, with Jarvan top means Herald, or Jarvan mid means Herald gets dropped top. And this is going to be several plates, if not just the first turret. The Cannibal is going to come down to try to farm the wave. The turret does have a ton of armor just because of the fact that they took so many plates. So they're not going to be able to get the entire thing, but that turret brought very low. Here's a play. Roy is up here in the top lane. He's the first one on the scene, going to flash out of the chain from the Alistar, get the Zenith Blade, get the stun from the Solar Flare. Fnatic going to flash. He's going to dash out of the Cataclysm. Hunter now in trouble, getting rooted up by the Karma. PCL dashes onto him, but Roy stuns him up. The Unleashed Power going to trade 1-for-1. You see APA getting the kill onto Hunter, and DNA taking one right back. It's a 1-for-1 trade at the end of it all.
Yo, that's the payoff we've been waiting here. The tension was mounting, and it suddenly just explodes here, and it's cross-map plays here coming through from Barrage, both the top lane and the mid lane. And that's actually really scary for Mirage now, because this is not the Darius Dragoon. Unfortunately, PCL, who, kind of wasn't necessarily dominated in top lane, is starting to come online, is able to bully out Dragoon in effectively what was a 1v1. Fnatic went up just to drop Herald. He didn't actually contribute on that fight too much, but mid lane, DNA stopping that gank with the scatter of the week was absolutely massive. So they're not too far behind. They do lose out a little bit on tempo and quite a bit onto plates here, but they're still perfectly fine. They're just looking to scale up. The win condition has always been Meech scaling up. So Mirage not in a rush.
Yep. It's worth mentioning we have our first mythic completed. We saw LS on Twitter preaching the idea of Moonstaff. Well, I'm going to bring up builds, but we haven't engaged onto bot lane. They're going on to Winter. He's going to proc the Unbreakable Will. This Alistar very tanky. The fight's now turning onto Roy, who's getting focused down by Gorica, and that's just no go. And you cannot try and gank an Alistar with ult up with only 3 people. That's never going to work out.
Only 3 people. They have a numbers advantage and they come out losing that fight, unfortunately. So yeah, that definitely does hurt. And every time Unbreakable Will's up, this is why Alistar's such a strong counter to Leona. It's going to be so difficult for them to pull that damage. The mythic for Hunter and Meech not through yet means they'll probably have to wait till they at least get that before they get a chance. But I know, Coleslaw, you wanted to talk about the Imperial Mandate. You want to talk about LS, so go ahead.
I was going to say, it's Moonstaff. So we've seen mid laners going for Moonstone Renewer and Staff of Flowing Water. The idea being Moonstone Renewer gives healing, Staff of Flowing Water on healing gives movement speed and AP. So it's anytime you hit an enemy champion, you're healing an ally, giving yourself and that ally movement speed. It's a really potent combo. We're not going to see it here. We're going to see it engage onto Hunter, though. The Headbutt Pulverize going to force him out. Gorka following up, collateral damage, as well as that Kaisa making sure Hunter goes down. That is a free kill, a free pickup, and with this Ocean Dragon spawn, that means that Barrage is going to be able to secure this objective as well.
Oh, that killer instinct from Gorka, and I'm not talking about the Kaisa ultimate either. This is just straight up Gorka diving a back line there, and knowing that he could get back out. His cleanse was so clean, and this is why I'm a little concerned for the bot lane of Mirage here, because even if Meech and Roy can sustain the pressure, can absorb it, and not give up too much, Gorica can coordinate the team, find kills elsewhere, speed up the game, and if Kaisa gets a hit in the mid game, they can potentially try and close the game out before Meech gets to really come online with the Xayah.
Yeah, and you see Hunter, even with the flag and drag combo, getting him way out of that fight. There's just so much follow-up, so much long-range damage and ability to chase down that he isn't able to get out of that fight. It's a Headbutt Pulverized, Jarvan not tanky yet, and then collateral damage from a screen away, and Gorica from a screen away, both just flying in there to take down Hunter, secure the dragon. It's now 1 dragon apiece, means we won't be seeing a super early soul, which is good news for these teams. Winter just going to find a DNA for free. He's going to have to blow his flash, but Winter going to flash right on top of him, and the Unleashed Power and the Q onto Fnatic, going to get the kill. And that's a turnaround from DNA, actually winning the 1v2, picking up a kill on that Graze, getting some double buffs for the road. Really well played by DNA on the Syndra.
2-0 Syndra here. I mean, yeah, sure, you're up in kills, but it was only up by 1 kills, and your kills are spread out. All of Mirage's kills have been concentrated onto DNA here, and True Grit does not really help you against that Syndra here. So definitely Fnatic has to be careful. If you don't have a support like the Karma to give you a shield or a little bit more of a buff here, you're not quite at the point where you can really solo or handle that Syndra for now. So good news for Mirage. There's not out of it. They can still play through that mid lane that we kind of talked about, the strength of that mid jungle duo.
They're going again. Here's a Hex Flash from Winter, going to knock up DNA once again. Another excellent scatter of the week. Gets DNA out of trouble. Now they're trying to turn the fight around. The Cannon Barrage down onto APA. The Zenith Blade goes wide. The Unbreakable Will times out. But we've got the rest of the team. Another excellent Pulverize for Winter. There's no follow-up, though. Winter just going to go down. Hunter goes in. He's going to fall right back. Meech has arrived. There's a teleport coming in. Both these teams on the run. Neither really wants anything to do. There's a flash in from PCL to try going. Gorica with the killer instinct into the backline. Gets the kill and the shutdown onto DNA, but he's going to fall for it. Now PCL onto Meech. He deletes that Xayah. He's going to chase down Dragoon, who's running away underneath his turret. Has to burn the flash. At the end of the day, it is a 1 trade for the side of Barrage. They get 3. Mirage only gets 2.
And that really should have been 4 there. Dragoon just barely getting out, with a hope and a prayer, and he's sticking around. That's a risky call, but they should be fine for now. And I know that I said we had to watch Gorica, because if Gorica goes down early, the fight's over. But now we got to watch Gorica for a whole different reason, because Gorica is playing frontline here on this guy. He's just going all the way and doesn't care if he dies as long as he picks up kills. And that is certainly one way to try and accelerate the bot lane.
Yeah, that's an interesting play, right? When you take that killer instinct onto DNA well behind that turret, you know that is a one-way journey. You're going to be staring down a gray screen. Your hope is that you can just make it worth. And that Syndra with a 400 gold shutdown compared to Gorka's 150 gold shutdown means that making that one-for-one trade is very worth, and taking that Syndra out so pivotal for Barrage's ability to win these fights. It means there's no more scatter the weak to deny PCL from going in, and it means that they're able to convert, able to win that fight, and they also get the first brick up in top lane. So they're now sitting a little bit ahead. It's not a massive lead for 15 minutes, but 1.5k gold up is better than 1.5k gold down.
Definitely can't argue with that. The more the merrier for sure. And you know, the other issue here is also the power spikes that we're starting to come into a little bit here for the side of Barrage. They're looking kind of strong here. You know, Mythics are mostly completed on all their members except for Winter right now. Whereas when you look over at the side of Mirage, Dragoon, you know, because he is that Gangplank, doesn't necessarily rush the Mythic, and Hunter still has not completed his Mythic either. So that's going to hurt. And Meech's Mythic, this isn't that Kraken Slayer Xayah, which can absolutely shred team fights later. This is the Gale Force that we've come to see on a lot of AD carries, where you can execute, and more importantly, you've got more mobility. But I'll stop here because DNA got caught.
Engaged onto DNA, the headbutt pulverize, and the stun means it's an easy kill for Gorka. No outplaying that one this time for DNA. He's just going to go right down.
There's nothing you can do, and DNA has to be careful about shoving out like that. If, you know, APA shows up with a buddy or Winter shows up with a buddy, they can potentially burst them down. And it's worse that it's Gorka, because now Gorka 4-1-0 and it's just doing so much.
Here's an engage from Hunter. He drops the Cataclysm onto Fnatic. Fnatic says, I happen to have a dash that gets me right out of this one. Herald goes down mid, going to knock down that turret. So it's a trade of an ult for a dash, and they lose their turret. A little pressure loss as well. That Cataclysm no longer up for this dragon spawning in 5 seconds. Syndra not even on the map yet, so you have to think this is going to be a wow. Meech taking a ton of damage from Fnatic. Has to use his ult and his flash just to get out of there. Hunter going to pay for his sins, gets stunned up underneath the turret, going to flash away. Fnatic has to chase down with a flash. Hunter actually lives. He's not going down to Fnatic. Winter goes down instead. They get a pick, they get a kill. They don't have the health bars, though, and so this may still be Barrage's dragon.
Bit of a Pyrrhic victory there, because yeah, you get the kill, but really that's because of an overextension by the side of Barrage here. They really wanted those kills, and you could see them kind of bullying out in every single way there. And I still don't believe Hunter actually got out alive for that. But they lose the dragon, as we talked about. That's more dragon stacking for the side of Barrage. And sure, a single Mountain Drake doesn't mean that much, but that fight was literally on a knife's edge, and that 6% armor and magic resistance might make all the difference the next time they look for a dive like that.
Well, there's a trade from DNA onto Gorka. Uses the Unleashed Power, forces out the cleanse. That's a lot of damage from that Syndra. That's going to be mid turret too.
That's all the damage out of DNA. So for the next little while the cooldown's ticking down for the next, what is that, 50 seconds there, Gorka will be safe in these team fights. But I like the proactive use of it, because getting that turret is huge. Just a minute ago, we were talking about a 1.5 thousand gold lead. We were looking at a 3,000 gold lead before that turret went down. So it's needed to stop the hemorrhage and make sure that they stay in the game and they don't fall too far behind.
Yeah, so I wanted to get back to the point of the dragon. Something you were saying, and kind of an extension of that, is that maybe it's speeding up, but this game hasn't been going the fastest. We don't see teams pushing super hard. We haven't seen any explosive team fights. 3k gold, it's a lead, but at 18 minutes, it's far from game deciding. And so you could expect this game not going to be ending at 25 minutes. And so getting these dragons is still going to be impactful. It is still going to provide that win condition towards a Mountain Soul. And you really don't want to see that on this Alistair, on this Aatrox, on a Graves. Getting those extra tanky stats mean that it's just going to be that much harder for DNA to do any damage with that burst, and for Meech with this non-Kraken Slayer build to melt through these frontliners. And so I think it's really important that you get that dragon, and I would say that for Raj, if you can give up your support to take a dragon, you do that all day, every day, 7 days a week.
Yeah, the thing though for me is that Barrage didn't even need to give up the support there.
Yeah,
that
true.
was just like kind of okay, we'll go for this, and Winter's tanky, yeah, but the unbreakable will, but a breakable back, so he does have to be careful on those sort of dives again. But I think they've learned their lesson. We probably won't see that, and yeah, definitely I'm very scared for Gorka actually getting all these resistances as well, because DNA needs to be able to push Gorka out of fights. And if those resistances kind of hit a magical breakpoint where he doesn't get burst down right away by that unleashed power, you know, by the orb and by the scatter of the weak, then all of a sudden fights are going to get a lot more dangerous, because if you can't burst Gork out, like I said, he's going to take over these fights. He can just go front to back as well with the Kraken Slayer, with this Kaisa build, and CC is about the only thing that's going to be able to stop him.
Yep. Well, it appears we've entered the lull state, RMC. We see some lanes being pushed back and forth, no objectives spawning, some boards being cleared. Gives us lots of time to talk about the fact that being against a 4-1 Kaisa is not ideal, being against a 4-2 Syndra, not ideal. So, kind of a battle of the two carries, right? With both of these champions having all of these kills, both of these players having a lot of their team's gold in their pockets. You can see that there's a pretty significant gold lead for DNA over his counterpart, and similarly for Gorka over his counterpart. So it's an imbalance here. It's a 2.4k gold lead for Barrage, but almost all of that lead is singled out onto Gorka, and that means that the pressure is going to be on him to make the carry happen.
Yeah, when we're talking, about carries, why don't we talk also about Cole? The players that you like to talk about most, these supports here, Roy and Winter, because I feel like when you're looking at carries and you need something to break the tie here, you look at their sidekicks, the supports. And Roy, I feel like, has been struggling a little bit this game to have impact on this Leona. I say that while Roy has quietly actually stopped a couple of turret dives, but 002 is not necessarily what we might have wanted to see from this Leona, from a support like this who can make plays.
Well, here's a Baron starting to go down. I don't believe that there's any vision from the side of Mirage. This is happening. You see the blue trinket drop in. Now they know they're making a beeline. The teleport's coming in, and that means that Barrage is going to immediately back off. They just wanted to see what they could do. As soon as they knew they were spotted, they wanted no part of it. It was a good attempt at a sneak. They don't really pay much of a price other than a bit of health onto Winter.
Should also mention that kind of came off the fact that they cleared the vision. They saw Dragoon actually use the cannon barrage to get vision initially when they thought they started the Baron, and nobody on Barrage got shown when the GP ultimate came down, so they were fairly confident turning around. It was a great use of it, and Dragoon, for the next little while at least, is not going to have any global tools available. I think the cannon barrage will be up by the time Dragon comes up, but the teleport won't.
Yeah, and it's going to be close. This is a Dragon coming up in 20 seconds. We see Mirage not really that close to the river or to the pit. They certainly are going to be on the back foot here. You see a Scatter of the Week connecting onto Gorka, but he's perfectly safe. He has a shield. He's able to back away. And now both these teams looking at the Dragon. You see a little bit of a bushwhack being set up by Barrage. Hunter going to be the focus. Winter running at him on the backside. PCL gets caught out by Roy. He's going to have to burn his stopwatch and then flash away to get to safety. So the flank not really working out there, and Hunter not really the target either. So both these teams posturing. We've got a full-on Nayram going down. It's going to be about who pulls the trigger first. All ultimates available, so we're just going to have to see. We've got a Q from the Karma. RMC, come on, man. What's happening? Who's going to go?
We're going to keep poking for now. Neither of them have to pull the trigger, but Mirage actually doesn't quite have the vision. They're trying to set up the vision line right now, but with the pull coming from APA, it's just so risky, and PCL is looking for the flank here.
Back on the flank, there's a 4-man pulverize from Winter. That's going to start the fight off. PCL gets a huge heal from the Gore Drinker. He's not going down. He's doing so much damage to the backline before he finally falls. Gore uses the killer instinct to go in, but he gets stunned up. He's got a gangplank on him. Winter going to get the kill onto Roy, but he is going to go down. And that is a disastrous fight for Barrage. Started off so well. You saw that Q from Winter. You think with a 4-man pulverize and an Aatrox on the flank, of course it's going to go well. But the disengage and peel from Mirage was just perfect. They were able to kill PCL through all that healing. They were able to keep their carries alive. It's only Roy going down. They get the Dragon. They get the trade up in kills. And they have evened the Dragon's scoreline right back up.
This goes back to the draft where we were talking about what Mirage dropped, that they've got themselves, a more straightforward team fight a little bit here. And you could see that there. The Scatter of the Week, into the Featherstorm from Meech to pull everybody back with the Blade Caller. It just rooted people for so long and hit so many targets simultaneously that despite Barrage getting the engage that they wanted to look for, they simply could not survive the damage. And that is great here for Mirage, because if you're even, when we approach the 30-minute mark, Mirage will begin to start looking scarier and scarier with this Gangplank, with this Xayah.
Yeah, And this is one of the favorite things to bring up about Gangplank is he has the oddly numbered level 13 power spike. That's when his barrels start ticking down very quickly, and he starts having a much easier time chaining barrels together in these team fights. If you check Dragoon, he is now level 14. So this Gangplank is scaling. He is online. He has the Leandries. It's a fun item to make those cannon barrages really, really hurt. And he's going to be picking up tons of AD from here on out. It's going to make those barrels hurt more and more. He's definitely the hardest scaling champion in this game. And so I think if you're Mirage, you're looking towards Dragoon and you're pretty excited. You're thinking, all right, we've got this Gangplank where we've gone even for the first 25 minutes. Like, we've kind of done everything we needed to do here. So going to be on those barrel combos, they do still have to hit. Gangplank, one of those champions who, despite being a scaling beast, can kind of fall flat if he's not able to find the combos he wants, and it still leaves it up to execution. So it's far from over even with that scaling lead. And of course, Fnatic and Gorka going to be scaling into this late game as well. And oh look, it's a pause.
That is an unfortunate pause, but that gives us a little bit of time to talk about the next couple of minutes. Because while we say that the game isn't over by any means, I actually feel like the game's about to get really dicey for both teams in the next 5 to 10 minutes here, because we're starting to hit that point where Mirage's team is going to get real scary here in terms of their damage. As we mentioned, the GP is hitting the point where he can do that. We've got 2 items onto Meech as well, maybe the 3rd in the next 5 to 10 minutes as well, and that's when the Xayah comes online. And when you look at the side of Barrage, I feel like this is their timer ticking here. They need to make a big play, and they need to find big objectives, because they are only sitting on 2 dragons, so they can't look to get an early Elder Drake and early Soul. They can't look to necessarily blitz down the Baron either. So they need to try and set something up, and a lot of that will revolve around vision, which they've done a great job with so far. Barrage has constantly kept the map blue, but they've not been able to leverage that, capitalize on it. And I want to see them to be able to take advantage of all that vision, or else it kind of doesn't matter if you can see everything, but you can't actually make plays on it.
Okay, all that said, we had in chat a reason for that pause. I'm sorry I didn't get to say it while the pause was happening. If anyone in Twitch chat can guess what that, I'm not even gonna make you guess. It was that Hunter's dog, Nate, was eating the carpet at his feet. That was why we paused, for dog eating carpet. So, League of Legends aside, I just feel like that was important enough to need to share, because sometimes your dog just starts eating carpet and you got to stop playing League of Legends to make sure your dog doesn't kill himself on your carpet, I guess. So you're welcome, everyone. I didn't have to share that with you, but I chose to because I thought you'd like to know.
You gotta stop the Nasus farming, man. If the Nasus keeps farming, it becomes a problem.
He's just getting too many stacks, man. I don't even know how many stacks are in a carpet.
As a professional random minion, I can tell you there's a lot of minions hiding in your carpet.
Every little dust mite, 3 stacks, baby. Anyway, we haven't engaged. There's a Cataclysm onto Gorka. He actually drops it very quick. You see Roy getting the engage, getting the Solar player. DNA hits a 2-man scatter of the week. The Cannon Barrage totally zoning this fight off. Winter may have popped the Unbreakable Will, but once again, that is a breakable Alistair. It's an excellent engage from Mirage. They kind of forced it, but they were allowed to force it. They pick up a kill, they pick up Winter, they damage Gorka a whole lot, and now they turn their attention back towards this Baron. They see PCL somewhere in this jungle. He pops the World Ender to try to run, gets hit up by a barrel though. The chase is on, he's running over wards. Hunter is here, Dragoon is here, DNA is on the backside. PCL gonna try his best to trade, but this is a literal 1v5. You can have all the healing in the world, you're not gonna be able to win that one. So he buys a lot of time for his team. It means no objectives go down from that kill on Winter, but they do get 2 freebies, and now it's up to Barrage to try and get something back. Fnatic dashing in, he's on to Roy. Roy running away, going to pop the Q to get a stun, but Fnatic going to dash down with the red smite. That's a dead Leona. It's a trade right back. That means that bit of a messy bit of gameplay there, RMC.
I think Barrage got a little bit, Mirage got a little bit confused as to which big purple thing was the Baron.
Here's a trade right back. Hunter just going on a Fnatic. That Jarvan was just beating that Graves up. You don't expect Jarvan to be able to win that 1v1, but he was looking for it. He gets a 3-man Cataclysm, but he's in a backline all by himself. He's going to go down for it. Winter has to flash the wall, isn't going to go down. A little bit of an overzealous engage from Hunter. His team was nearby, but not quite close enough to follow up with the flash Cataclysm. So he's going to fall. Dragon is now up. That's no smite for Mirage to contest this.
went from quiet conservative early game to a complete murder fest real quick there, Cole. All it took was one pause and a dog munching on carpet, and now they are turning on the dragon here without the smite. You mentioned they don't have a jungler, they don't have smite, and they're still opting to start this up.
Yeah, and you see PCL looking on the flank again. There's an excellent flank from Winter to get the headbutt pulverized combo, but there's a Cannon Barrage doing tons of damage in the backline. APA going to go down to the Unleash power. PCL in the backline. He's going to try and get down Meech. Meech able to run away, but it's the rest of his team falling. The Aatrox moving way too fast, going to get a clean 4 kills there. Only APA goes down in return. That's going to mean the Dragon, and now it's up to Hunter to make a hero play, or else Mirage also going to lose this Baron.
Forget the dragon. It's the Baron that they need to take right now with only Hunter up here, and Hunter's a level down as well. So the smite steal would be incredibly difficult. Remember how we kept talking about vision earlier? Or I kept talking about vision earlier? They don't have the vision. Hunter cannot take this. He doesn't even, he's got control wards in his inventory, and Winter's just gonna basically play bodyguard here and keep Hunter out of this pit.
Yeah, it is very difficult to get past an Alistar. He's actually going to headbutt him into the pit, but way too early. That Baron not low health enough. Barrage playing it right. They're going to do the Baron really slow, make sure that they can bully Hunter away before it goes down. This poor Jarvan not able to escape the fury of an angry war god and a cow. So he's going to fall. Baron going to go the way of Barrage. They're now on soul point, and they have this Baron buff. And finally, we see a convincing lead taken in this game. It's 7k gold up for Barrage. They have the Baron. They're going to start looking to push.
Absolutely massive for Barrage here, because Barrage needed to make a big play happen. They were struggling to find good engages, you know, ways of making things happen. And honestly, I actually thought things went south for them when Mirage forced that fight in the mid lane and PCL wasn't there. But because of the chaos, they've managed to capitalize on that. They're at soul point. More importantly, they get Baron, and now they can try and crack some of those inner turrets, which are effectively standing gold for themselves here, grow their lead so that they don't get choked out and just outscaled here in the post 30-minute mark.
And I feel like it all went wrong on that chase of PCL. Like, yeah, they killed the Aatrox, but they took all 5 people on their team, and they took 45 seconds to do it. Their Jarvan died, they lost the Dragon, they lost the Dragon fight, taking a 4-on-5, and they've just slowly lost control of the game since then. The wild goose chase, man. It's don't chase Singed. Maybe we need to add don't chase PCL either, because that was a disaster. Here's Winter looking for a flank. Roy finds himself in an awkward position. 2-man pulverize onto Hunter and onto DNA. This backline getting poked down. The killer instinct from Gorka going in. There's a Cataclysm. There's a solar flare, but Gorka with the cleanse able to stay alive. Now PCL's in the backline. He's rooted up. He gets the heal from that to stay alive. So much healing. Still falls, but it's going to cost Meech his life. Man, what a fight. It's going to be a 2 for 3 in favor of Barrage. They have a cannon creep here. They're going to start cracking the base.
I was just watching Gorka that entire fight, and Gorka just died without the rest of the team and actually managed to take down both Hunter and Dur there as well, which that's absolutely messed up considering that Gorka went in alone, no support whatsoever, 1v2. That's a problem, and they don't even need Gorka to take down these turrets because they've got Baron buff. They've got, you know, my Baroned up Siege minion brothers there to do the damage to the structures as well, and this is massive. I thought they were just going to take inner turrets and get a whole bunch of gold. They've cracked the base open, so they can look to just force a fight now without turrets, you know, walking in supers into the mid lane. And Mirage now have to play defense with the Mountain Drake coming up in 2 minutes here.
RC, what are your thoughts on the item Gore Drinker?
I mean, I think they kind of mixed up the name there. It's not so much Gore Drinker, it's just like Gore Breaker. Like, it's just flat out broken item here. I don't care that they nerfed it. I don't care that Grievous Wounds got some buffs here. It's just way, way, way too strong. And especially on champions like Aatrox or Renekton, it's disgusting.
Yeah, I feel like every time I see PCL go in, I'm tempted to say and just write him off as dead, you know? Like, surely no one can survive engaging into a 1v4 where he's taking this much damage. And then Gore Drinker procs, and suddenly he has 3/4 of his HP bar back, and he's totally fine. And it just keeps happening over and over and over again. This Aatrox drain tanking like a beast, just causing problems for this Mirage backline. We see the Executioner's Calling picked up onto Meech. I think that's the first instance of Grievous Wounds that we see on Mirage. It's maybe a little too late because this Aatrox has done the damage. They need the answer to it, though. I think it's going to fall onto Meech to melt this Aatrox, punish him for that healing, and see what they can do, because every fight now, it's Gorica just eats up so many resources because you have to shut down this 11-2 Kai'Sa. Ignoring that Kai'Sa is not an option, and because you have to sink so much into the Kai'Sa, it opens the door for this Aatrox to wreak havoc. There's just not enough resources to split between the two of them. There's not enough damage to melt through this Aatrox if you have to use that unleashed power on the Kai'Sa.
And I feel like we have to give credit to PCL too. Throughout this entire game so far, PCL has been getting some amazing flank positions with or without his TP. I think every time we've seen a fight, PCL has managed to find a way to enter from the back of the fight onto the carry. And they're going to force
Here's an engage. That is a fast Alistair. Scatter the Weak going to stun him up, but they still want it. Headbutt Pulverize onto Roy. Zenith Blade back onto Winter. Ton more damage going onto Roy. Hunter looks for the engage. Cannon Rod is going to get dropped. These teams are scrapping. That's a lot of ultimates burned. The Dragon Soul is up, and health bars are starting to get a little low. Roy kind of uncomfortably low to start this fight off. Meech has taken some damage too, and this is going to be a pivotal fight. I don't think Mirage can come back from giving up Soul. They need to go for this, but how do they get in? How can they make this happen? You see DNA fishing, looking for poke, looking for stuns, but not able to do it. PCL once again on the flank. He spotted out. There's a Cataclysm onto Winter and Fnatic. Winter gets a 4-man Pulverize. Gorica's just doing damage for free in the backline, and that is going to be an absolute wipe. Dragoon flashes away. Fnatic chasing down Hunter, but what an excellent Pulverize from Winter to make sure that that kill goes down. Soul secured for Barrage. Ace going to be secured for Barrage. And RMC, that should just about do it. They get the fight. And I think that's actually a surrender vote coming in from Mirage. So that is good game. What an engage by Winter.
Again, at that last fight, did you that engage was great, but it actually didn't net anything. It was the sort of re-engage, at the Baron Pit, and PCL once again somehow in the back line, and they're caught between a rock and a hard place here. Where are you gonna go? PCL waiting behind you, Winter right in front of you, Fnatic and Gorica. Actually, Gorica started in front, ended at the back right away, and it's just such a chaotic fight. It's a huge problem that they don't have enough vision to catch where PCL is coming from. Time after time after time, PCL 4-4-9 doesn't look amazing, but just having the Aatrox always omnipresently in your back there, able to find Meech, able to find DNA, able to find Dragoon, that's an issue I feel like that Mirage needs to fix between these games here.
Yeah, it just felt, I agree, it felt like PCL was kind of living rent-free inside Mirage's heads. They knew he was on the flank. He kept finding it, kept coming there. And you see, leading into that fight, they were watching PCL. They dropped a blue trinket over the wall. They dropped a ward. They were trying to go for this Aatrox. And in trying to save their flank, they kind of lost sight of the 12-kill Kai'Sa and that Alistair coming right at them. And Winter said, hello, my name is Alistair. Gets a 4-man knock-up. The follow-up was there. And as soon as that Pulverize connected, it was just good game, lights out, and Barrage able to take game one.
That wasn't a battle call. That was a flat out raging bull that went charging in. And I want to point out, Winter's Unbreakable Will was actually down on that engage because he already burnt it before. So he just kind of ran into there without the ultimate. And I guess the sight of a raging bull just rushing at you, and the fact that the blue trinket caught PCL right before he engaged them from behind. It's that moment, in horror movies where like you turn on the flashlight and staring right at you is the monster in the dark. That's how I feel like that blue trinket went down. But yeah, definitely things for them to consider here. I don't know if they want to keep giving the Kai'Sa over to Gorica, especially if Meech doesn't get the Aphelios, because the Meech Xayah, I understand in theory, but in reality, kind of didn't work out here.
I mean, there are things to consider for Mirage, right? You have to think after that game, this is not an unwinnable series. It is comebackable. You were even up until that play where you lost that third dragon. You were doing perfectly fine. You were getting kills. You were going toe-to-toe. It was just when they lost that dragon, then they lost the fight, they lost the Baron. Suddenly, they were a little too far in the hole to come back. But if they could have played that a little differently, if the mid-game just worked out a little cleaner, it would have been fine for them. That was on a razor's edge for so long. So these two teams, a good even matchup. Barrage able to squeak it out with that superior macro in the mid game, able to capitalize on these chases, on this fight around Dragon that Mirage really didn't want to take. and they were able to get themselves a lead, but it wasn't the most convincing. It wasn't dominating. They had to fight for it. They had to earn it. And with a different draft, with a different approach, with maybe some different game planning to keep Gorka a little more shut down, I think Mirage can come back and try to make game 2 an interesting one.
For sure. And as you said, the mid game was actually really close. Dragoon did a great job not falling too far behind. DNA was, fairly dominant right up to the moment where they overchased PCL. So they've got all the pieces here. They just need to make it work, change things around a little bit. And Mirage, they're no strangers to 3-game series here. Barrage has not dropped the game yet, but Mirage, on the other hand, they're used to, fighting and slogging through here. So I'm looking at them to once again bring us to a 3-game series here and hand Barrage their first loss.
Well, we're going to have to find out. Will it be Barrage punching a ticket into the playoffs with a bye, or will it be Mirage forcing the series to a game 3? We'll be back with that action in just a few moments, so don't go anywhere.
Take a moment right here, feeling like it's out gear. Driving towards the sun with a rose and a gun. Feel the wind in my hair, going nowhere I swear. Like an outlaw on the run, dangerous but it's so fun. Running, running, no. Hold on, don't let go. Running, running, no. Keep running.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Risen Esports Champions League secondary stream. My name is Cole Slaw. Joining me here on this cast is Random Minion Caster. We just saw a game one that went really even for a while until Barrage was finally able to get a convincing lead, get a dragon, get a baron, and start closing out the game. So Mirage now down to match point. They need to win here or they're going to be fighting for their lives tomorrow. Barrage in a position to clinch a playoff berth and a bye. So a lot riding on this game. Both teams want it. Both teams have a lot to gain. And I mean, it should be close. Game one was close. It's just going to be up to Mirage to come back and make sure that they can try and tie this series up. There was some sloppiness. They looked competent. They looked like they can win a game here, but they're going to need to execute. We're into picks and bans already. We actually have a miss ban for the first one. That is an Olaf ban. It's not a no ban. They put it in chat. So Olaf off the table, and now we're waiting on the rest of these bans to come in.
Well, I called for a second. I wasn't sure if you're talking about the game or the picks and bans when you said they were competent, but they had some problems because the Olaf, I mean, that missing ban is apparently an Olaf ban. So no change, at least for that ban for the side of Mirage. The misfortune, though, certainly a bit of a change here. Targeted at Gorica, which makes me curious. Are they gonna? It would make sense for them to try and first pick that Kaisa that works so well for Gorica because Meech does play it, and so far we've seen Samira, Kaisa, and Aphelios. Aphelios banned away kind of means that Meech has only proven themselves on 2 champions so far.
Yeah, and it looks like Mirage going to be sticking with their bans. The Aphelios not happening, the Nunu not happening. They're kind of getting rid of these signature champions from Mirage once again, saying the things that you're comfortable on that we don't necessarily play as much, we're just going to get them out of here, get them off the table, make you play something a little more standard or a little less preferential, either way. So I think that's good strategy from Barrage. And of course, Darius, the last ban. And as you'd expect, RMZ, Kaisa locked in immediately.
Yeah, only makes sense. I mean, Gorica, what was that, 12-1 last game? Like, that's not a champion you want to give over to Gorica. That's just way too risky here. Now, I'm not sure I necessarily agree with the misfortune and karma. We'll have to see how that works out because we already kind of talked about it. Banning APA doesn't usually work because APA has such a deep champion pool here. And okay, Gorica is going with the Samira pick to match Meech here. So last game we saw Meech kind of going, okay, you want an engaged ADC, you want to go in, I'll pick Xayah, I'll take something that's going to be fairly safe and can get out. In this case, you know, it's Mirage picking up the Kaisa, and Gorica is going, no, forget about playing safe. If you want to go in, I'll go in even harder with the Samira pick here.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that Jin has made it all the way through picks and bans once again. He is a really priority pick at a lot of levels, but neither of these teams really all that excited by him. We got the Kaisa Samira this game after we had Kaisa Xayah last game, so no Jins to be seen, no 4s to be shot. Instead, we have a Galio lock-in and a Skarner to answer it.
Oh my goodness, Hunter Skarner here that he played yesterday. I'm looking very much forward to this Skarner, and I really like the pickup when you see what that Samira there, because the moment you see a Samira, you want to make sure that you've got some ways of stopping the engage, stopping the Inferno trigger. And while sure things like Leona and Alistair certainly do a great job of it, Skarner just excels because you can lock her down. You're going to instantly force either a cleanse or a QSS from Gorica here. So they're already picking up a lot of pieces. Scatter of the Week will do much the same thing. So the Samira pick for Barrage already feels to me like it's going to be in a dicey position right away here.
Yeah, I feel like locking in Skarner into Samira is kind of saying Windwall this. You know, the Impale, not a projectile. It's just going to hit you. And you're going to need to play respectively for it. We saw Gorka also use Cleanse really effectively last game. Doesn't work against Impale. Suppression cannot be cleansed. So I think that's a good adaptation. They're going to try to get onto Gorka more here. We also see the mid lane matchup already locked in. There was a point in time where Galio being picked early left things kind of up to flexing a little bit. Galio support could happen, but at this point, that's APA's Galio. We know that for a fact. So the Syndra going to be the answer into that Galio. And then we also see this blind pick Camille locked in by Barrage. So that's probably going to be going top lane. We actually saw Camille jungle yesterday in a couple different matches. So it is showing up, though it's not particularly great. You'd much prefer Camille top. It is a pick that wants laning and it struggles to clear the jungle. So I would imagine that's top lane and kind of raises an eyebrow for me because that means that Barrage has just blind picked both of their solo lanes while drafting from red side.
I'll still hold off on the Galio. While I agree that APA's Galio is known, Winter did actually play it so far in the Risen Champions League. I believe it was week 1 day 2 or week 2 day 1. He actually played Galio support, so there is still a chance that they could flex that out. But you know what, Galio into Syndra actually isn't too terrible. Galio's natural magic resistance tankiness will help to deal with the burst from DNA, and we already saw that DNA on the Syndra is oppressive here. And when you pair it with a Skarner, it's even worse. And Galio being a melee champion, I feel like that's a kind of a rough matchup. So they might potentially want to flex depending on what support Mirage picks up, because the Leona is still available, the Alistair is still available as well, and the Thresh, more importantly, still available here for Mirage.
Yeah, Roy has all of the picks open. I really like that. You see Mirage banning, by the way, 2 AP junglers. They're going to get answered with a 3rd AP jungler. They were kind of trying to suggest with Galio locked in, there's not that much magic damage, so an AP jungler is going to have to come through for Barrage if they want to get through the Skarner and not have him just stack a ton of armor. So Nidalee going to make sure of that, going to get some more magic damage mixed into their composition. Now it's up to Mirage to answer. I think I'd like to see something interesting to counter this Camille. They've got the Leona for Roy once again. Hard to disagree with that. He looked perfectly fine on it. He was really good at getting rid of these dives, kind of finding engages, solar flares not going wide at all, always connecting onto a target, always making sure that they could get a stun and find someone to kill. So I really like that Leona. It seems like a good comfort pick. And now it's time to counter this Camille. They know it's going top lane. The only question is if this Galio supporter mid, but they can counter here, and they're going to counter it with the Alawi.
That was actually what I was thinking right now for this particular composition. You've got Samira, Galio, Camille. They all want to go in here. And if you Hextech Ultimatum, and you match it with the Alawi, that's not a bad pick at all. And we've already seen the Alawi from Dragoon just yesterday. It's a pretty solid pickup. So I like it a lot here. And this is now going to put a big question mark for Barrage. They are going to give APA the Galio as expected there, the Alistair to try and match. So I now feel like Barrage has to be very careful in these team fights. You don't want to fight the Alawi when the ultimate's up, when it's available there, but you don't have necessarily a ton of escape tools. So they have to be very, very careful of when they do opt to go in and how they actually get into these fights here.
Yeah, Alawi is the classic pickup in top lane that says, oh, you're trying to put me in a small arena? I'm not trapped in here with you. You're trapped in here with me. I'm going to press R and turn it into the Thunderdome. I'm going to heal. I'm going to do damage. I'm going to win this fight. Now, Dragoon's Alawi didn't work out great yesterday. We saw it get camped early before it could come online and end up 0-4 and super far behind. So I would think Barrage probably going to try and learn from that and repeat that experience. I think if you can punish the Alawi and get it behind early so that those ults aren't scary, that can work out super well. But if you can't, and if this Alawi gets ahead or even goes even, Nidalee and Camille don't want to be diving onto an Alawi. You do not want your Camille and Galio trying to pull off the classic Hextech ultimatum into heroic entrance combo. It's one of those things that's one of the more foolproof combos in the game. It punishes top laners worldwide. It says, hey, you're stuck in here, and a Galio is flying in to knock you up in just a moment. And Alawi, perfectly all right with that if there are enough items on that champion. So that can be concerning for Barrage. That's kind of counter to their game plan. They have to have known it was in the cards. You have to know when you lock in Camille Galio blind that there is the Alawi as an answer. It was played yesterday, and now it's just going to be up to Dragoon to execute as that counter pick.
For the side of Mirage, I would like to point out that, when we saw Dragoon on this Alawi and he got camped and there was no aid from his own team, the jungler that Hunter was running was also this Skarner. So I'm hoping that Hunter and Dragoon, have worked out their differences, figured out how they want to do this. Because if we see a repeat of yesterday here, like you mentioned, it's going to be really rough for Dragoon against the potential constant camping from the Nidalee, from the Galio, both of whom can just continuously, repeatedly look to gank that top side. But I also want to look at the bot side here, because Galio doesn't have to go top. APA can look to get Gorica ahead, because Gorica has been a huge win condition for them. Game 1, it was Gorica popping off, and what pops off even harder than a Kai'Sa? A Samira. So if they engage onto Meech or onto Roy here in the bot side, if Roy goes in, Roy doesn't come back out. This Leona Zenith Blade only goes one way here, and if Heroic Entrance catches Roy, they could easily get Gorica fed as well.
Yeah, and I think Winter on this Alistar is also a really good thing for Barrage. Winter was a monster. We saw, of course, the game-winning Pulverize, where he just knocked up 4 people and said, all right, that's it, shut the door. But he was doing really well on that pick throughout the game, finding these proactive, aggressive plays, sometimes dying for it or getting a little too overzealous, but oftentimes finding kills, finding picks, blowing summoners. He had one 4-man pull before that game winner that burned a couple summoners. It didn't have great follow-up, but he finds them. He has an eye for it. He's able to use this champion almost about to the maximum potential that it can be used. And I think that's comforting for Barrage, because you have your support on this massive playmaker that he just popped off on last game. Your AD carry that popped off is on another playmaker with tons of drain tanking and healing. Galio is here to create this map pressure. You have Fnatic on Nidalee to kind of provide this needed magic damage. And PCL on Camille, he was Pi Can lane last game. Camille, of course, one of the snowballiest champions in the game. So if Barrage can get a lead, I think they're looking very comfortable. But if they don't, if the Alawi gets a lead, or Meech on this Kai'Sa gets a lead, or DNA gets a lead on the Syndra again, they can be in trouble. There aren't a ton of amazing tools to deal with this, and Skarner can be a problem. So it's going to be about how well these teams execute. I think in the early game, that's going to be the more likely deciding factor in this one.
100%. And Fnatic on this Nidalee, now we did see that Fnatic likes to farm up quite a bit. Nidalee able to farm very efficiently, but I want to see some really strong ganks coming through as well, because I feel like all the lanes would benefit hugely from some early pressure, even if they don't necessarily get a kill. If you get PCL ahead, if you get Gorica and Winter ahead, or mid lane, if you get APA to a point where he doesn't ever have to really fear that Syndra all in and insta bursting him down, then Barrage will be in a really solid position to just get leads and transition that into the mid game as well. So rather than just farming and letting Hunter sort of just run the map, I want to see Fnatic step up early a little bit more.
Yeah, Nidalee, of course, is going to be a stronger jungler for the first few levels in this game. Skarner isn't a slouch early game, but he kind of does need his shrines or his relics or whatever they're called, man. Crystal Spires?
Yeah, that's the one.
Crystal Spires. That's Brackern are weird, man. Seraphine trying to raise awareness. I don't know. He has things that make him go fast and attack quicker. And if he's not fighting in those on the early levels, he's not that strong. Whereas Fnatic on Nidalee, connect a spear, dash in, get some damage. That can be a really big deciding factor. If he can get some good ganks, blow some summoners, or even get a kill or two, you can kind of try and punish, because a Skarner ganking before he's level 6, before he has an item to go fast, kind of one of those things where you answer it by just walking in the opposite direction. You kind of look at the Skarner and say, oh, you're ganking me. I'll just leave now. and there's not a whole lot that Skarner can do about it. So I'd like to see Barrage capitalize on that window where Skarner's not very scary.
To be fair to Hunter here and his Garner, he does have some friends here, so DNA can set him up with the stun. So can Roy. Dragoon, not so much with the setting up with the stun, but still, bot mid, he can look there, try and make some plays happen. And don't forget, Galio is a melee champion, so you can potentially try and pick on the fact that he has to overextend a little bit. Samira, Alistar, that's a duo who likes to try and play aggressively. So we'll have to see Barrage play as conservatively as they did last game, because their early game from Barrage was on point. The way they just kind of backed out immediately without having to burn their wards early. And then later in the game, their ward vision. I actually want to talk about that a little bit because I feel like the ward vision is going to be massive here. Barrage had ward vision on lock, and if they set it up the way they did last time, they'll always be able to track Hunter, and Hunter won't be able to get in there without being, hit, butted out, or eating a whole bunch of spears or something trying to get in there.
Yeah, and we saw Vision score going in the favor of Barrage. Winter was the Vision master last game, and if they can do that again, when you see a Skarner coming, he's just not that much of a threat. You can back off, you can run away. Skarner can't really force things if he's known to be coming, and that can be a problem. So I agree with you there. I think if Mirage can keep that Vision up, it can be an issue for Mirage. In any case, we got to wait for Spectator Delay to wind down. We got to build the Rift ourselves. Riot Games has been giving us a bit of a framework, but it is still on us. Us, the casters, have to go brick by brick, tree by tree, make that Rift happen. So we're going to go to a brief break. I don't know where I was going with that. We'll see you all in just a couple minutes. Don't go anywhere. Everyone, and welcome to the Rift here for Game 2 of Barrage versus Mirage in Risen Esports Champions League. This is round 4, day 4. Winner clinches a ticket into the playoffs with a first round bye. Loser has a do or die match tomorrow just to make it into quarterfinals. Barrage won game 1. They weren't totally dominant, but they pulled it out. Now they're back to try and clinch that bye if they can. My name is Coleslaw. Joining me on the cast here is Random Minion Caster. We have a level 1 that's a little different than the one we saw in game 1.
Fortunately, we're not going to get, that big invade from both teams. Both playing a bit more carefully. I think for Mirage, it makes sense. You don't want to lose entire series, when you have a potential to drag this on off a level 1 fight. So it makes sense that they're a bit passive. And I think for Barrage too, like they've just decided, you know what, forget it. We'll just scale. We'll play carefully because that's how they won game 1. They just scaled up.
I almost heard half of what you said. The cowbell, just too distracting, man. Winter is just going ham on. Oh, he's back again, sending that push with the cowbell. I love it. Sorry, what was it? What are we? League of Legends? Is that the game we're playing today? Who are these teams? What's going on?
Something about Riot spaghetti pasta. I don't know, so something like that, right? But you know what? It's okay because we're past the part where he's beating his cowbell. He has to get back into lane. And are Meech and Roy going to try cheese again?
Yeah, they were looking for it. They wanted the cheese. They were hoping that Gorka and Winter were going to come from blue buff through river. They did not get their wishes because Fnatic starting up top on those Raptors. It's a good start for Nidalee, able to clear those without a leash and buy a little bit of pressure for that bot lane, making sure no cheese happens this time. So going to be much more standard start to the game, even with all the emote spam coming out of Winter.
I mean, Winter can afford to right now, right? Like at level 1, the Alistar's it's hardly going to go on the aggressive right away. They're just there to make sure that the Leona doesn't go in, and all you need to do is press Q for the pulverize they do. So Winter can afford to just mess around for now. And we did look at how the lane states were going to go, and we're saying that maybe there's some kill pressure top. You know, I think we're kind of a similar situation where it's, again, PCL with some kill potential in the top lane. The other lanes, though, gonna be kind of passive once again. Hopefully we get a bit more action sooner, though.
Yeah, we kind of see a tale of two different level 2s happening on opposite sides of the map there, where level 2 gets hit for Roy and Meech first, but the Zenith Blade doesn't connect. They're not able to make anything happen. On the top side, PCL hits level 2 first, gets a really good trade in Dragoon. Unfortunately for PCL, there is a corrupting pot on that Alawi, so that damage not really going to stick, not really going to prove to be all that consequential.
It's going to take a while. They need to burn through all those pots stacks as well. If not, can't really do anything. But I like what I'm seeing out of Mirage early right now. They are getting some wards right away near the bot side. They want to make sure that they can spot Fnatic if Fnatic does opt to come back out. And it's also going to provide some safety for Hunter here, who's going to try and take the scuttle.
Yeah, here's an insanely early roam from PCL coming down to the mid lane because of the freeze that Dragoon had set up top. Nothing bad top ever happens at 3.5 minutes, but here's something happening mid. You see a dash in from APA, going to stop Hunter from running away. He's zooming out. He's going to flash away from Fnatic, and DNA not going to be able to help him. So that's going to be a summoner burned on APA for a trade onto Hunter. I'm actually not convinced that's worth for Barrage.
Yeah, probably not, because Hunter doesn't really need that flash right away here. By the time he's level 6, that flash should almost be up again, and APA not having that, again, will affect his, ability to sort of punish DNA a little bit, but I'm guessing for now he doesn't care. He's got Predator. He can just run DNA down if he has to.
Yeah, you do see a bit of a CS lead already happening in this mid lane. We haven't paid it too much attention. Actually, got a fight happening bot. This shouldn't result in too much. Zenith Blade going in. Roy wants something. There's a heal burn from Meech. An Ignite dropped onto Gorka. Teleport being channeled. Gorka dashing in, going to flash. A spear is going to connect. So is the pulverize from Winter. Now a teleport channeling back in. DNA has arrived. That's a scat of the week. That's a revenge kill for DNA. Picking that up onto Winter. So it's a 1-for-1 summoner neutral for both these teams. But once again, look at the state of mid lane. While APA got there first, DNA stayed, shoved another wave, and is going to deny even more farm in that lane. So this Syndra now up 25 CS and a kill over the Galio. And that's concerning already, RMC. That is a huge lead for 5 minutes.
Even more concerning to me, Cole, is the fact that APA didn't get the assists on that bot lane dive. So not only did he commit the teleport, not only did he lose a bunch of CS at top side, actually.
Yeah, here's a 1v1 going down. Dragoon getting focused by PCL. You see flashes burn, turret going in, but that's a solo kill. PCL just going to be able to out-damage Dragoon. They trade it, but it's going to be just too much damage from this level 5 Camille. And once again, Pycan lane picking up a solo kill on Dragoon in a counter-picked matchup. This allowing was an answer to the Camille. It's going to go down 1v1.
I go back to API. I just want to say, like, Dragoon's probably having flashbacks yesterday because this is kind of how it started, and Hunter's not helping him either. So Dragoon's gonna be in for a rough time. But yeah, APA is falling really far behind because he didn't get the assists for both roams. Now is down a bunch of CS. It's more importantly down a level and a half. Was actually 2 levels down right before that last wave. So for now, APA is basically out of the picture. He just needs to farm back up. Once he hits 6, though, he'll probably just start roaming and forget this lane because DNA is just going to abuse him otherwise.
Yeah, and DNA is proving the Syndra mastery here. You see him being very, very scary, showing that Syndra into Galio, a lane that he is very comfortable doing. Now, of course, Galio is a pick not that you grab to win the mid lane necessarily. Its whole point is to heroic entrance onto other parts of the map and win those lanes instead. The issue is that when you start getting this far behind, you're running the risk of not even being able to show your face in mid lane or being ganked. Here's engage on the bot lane. The summoners are all gone, and you have a Skarner arriving, so Hunter going to get that stun onto Winter. This Alistar has no flash, has no way out. Easy pickup for Meech, picking up a free kill. So another one going over to the side of Mirage.
Nice steak dinner there for the bot lane of Mirage already, and Meech showing that, you know, his Kai'Sa is pretty decent too. It's not all Gorica here, and that's going to be huge for them because it will also probably net them the first dragon of the game, the Inferno Drake, the one and only on in this particular game here. So that will be nice, that added bit of damage. DNA sure to be happy with that pickup.
Yeah, that's just a good gank with a good timing, you know? You can focus down bot lane while that dragon's up, get that objective off the map. And for a jungler, that actually kind of unlocks you to go top lane, because you know if you gank top a lot of the time, it basically means donating a dragon to your opponent. You show your face top lane, the other jungler says, this idiot, he's ganking top lane, I'll go take a free dragon. But when the dragon isn't there, there's no cross-map punish other than a gank that can be answered with some respectful play. So that's a good play, and now that Skarner can be going towards top lane. Here's a play in the mid lane, DNA doing some fancy feet, Fnatic kind of trying to bait him out with not throwing the sphere, but nothing much happening there. Here's a fight breaking down in bot lane. You see the engage onto Roy. They're trading back, but this Leona has no mana. Gorka going to flash in, pop that ultimate. This is a level 6 Samira versus a level 5 Kai'Sa. Gorka going to get that revenge kill. It's just a 2v2, and they clap right back after getting ganked. Pick up something for themselves, punishing that disrespectful recall.
I think that for Mirage, they kind of forgot that for all the times they killed Winter, Gorica wasn't forced back. He was just there soaking the solo experience. So the fact that Gorica hit 6, you know, yeah, Winter was only level 4 in that engage start. He's a level down, but it's more important that Gorica was 6, and they managed to turn things around. A nice, I don't want to say consolation prize for Barrage, considering how their bot lane's been going, but it's definitely a bit of a nice pickup. And now Roy is roaming to the top side here, so we might start seeing a bit of a lane swap since, as you mentioned, Dragon already down.
Yep, and so Skarner going to start paying attention. You actually see the bot lane has swung up here too. The Herald on the map, it looks like Mirage wants it, and they're going to try to help out their boy Dragoon. Here's the Goon squad onto this Alawi. He's going to pop that ultimate. He's going to get the healing, and this is a disaster for Barrage. 2 of them go down. That is exactly what happens when you go onto an Alawi. She pops that ultimate, and she just stays alive. It's a 3-for-1 in favor of Mirage. I mean, you have to ask, what is Mirage thinking? Did they think they had the burst damage, I guess? Were they going to try and kill that Alawi before the ult came in? Because it didn't work out, and that's just a really risky play that they get punished for.
I think they had quite enough vision, so they weren't sure who was in the area. So I think they thought they had the numbers advantage, but it really sucks because Winter wasn't even level 6 yet, so no unbreakable will. That's very, very squishy. This isn't that Raging Bull, that Battle Cow. Like I said, this is dinner on a plate right now. Until he hits 6, until he gets some tanky stats here, it's just, it's not a good idea. He is now 6, but they've already lost too much. They've lost Dragon, they've lost Herald, and great for Mirage. Mirage has taken control of this early game here.
Yeah, and that's a really excellent patient play from Mirage. You knew that they were there, they were sitting there waiting for the aggression, and as soon as it came in, they showed up out of that bush and said, hello, we're here, and they made it happen. Now you see another patient play where they are waiting in a bush, they're going on to Gorka. The headbutt knocks Meech out of the way, so he's not going to be able to follow up with a kill, but they do still win the trade. They get a heal off of the Samira and go up in health, so another good tricky play there. Also want to make sure we mention that they did get the Herald off of that, so Hunter has that and can drop it wherever he wants when the time comes.
That top play there, despite the heal going down, that is also Solar Flare down for the side of Roy there. And you can already see Gorka just healing up with that Vamp Scepter. They can potentially turn this.
Oh, here's a play onto mid lane. DNA getting flashed after the taunt is going to connect. So is the spear, and that is a dead Syndra. Trade of flashes, but they get the kill. Now they're looking for Gorka once again. Another excellent headbutt to knock Hunter out of the way. Now you see Gorka focusing down this Hunter. He drops the R, but... Oh, no, that wasn't an R. Why did it sound? I could have sworn I heard the now of Skarner popping his ultimate, but it didn't happen. So, in any case, aggression answered. Good disengage by Winter. No ultimate burned. Sorry about that.
No worries. I mean, the Impale doesn't come down, and it's kind of a good thing there, because I'm pretty sure if the Impale had gone down, so would the Hero's entrance there. Something they have to keep in mind whenever they go on Gorica now, that sure, you might be able to get the Impale off. Sure, there's no QSS for Gorica, but there is still a Galio ultimate, and it will serve a similar purpose in that ultimate will come down, and if Hunter can't get out of there fast enough, he's going to get knocked up, and a lot of the Impale potential gets wasted.
Yeah, I agree, and especially when you have your mid laner dead, going for that play has a high risk of getting punished because APA can go for the counterplay at a moment's notice. We see the Herald getting dropped mid lane here. It's going to be able to get a few plates on this turret and going to bring it really low. With Dragon spawning in 15 seconds, this is them posturing, trying to make something happening. You see those plates drop. They actually aren't going to get that fourth plate. Really unfortunate that it has the health to survive. And now both these teams going to turn their attention to the Dragon. We see every ultimate available, every member of both teams in the vicinity. Though with Barrage starting to walk towards top lane, they might just be conceding this Dragon.
Mirage still needs to wait a little bit of time because the Unbreakable Will is the only ultimate that isn't quite up yet. And as we before, is actually crucial for the way they want to engage here, because Winter likes to be in front, likes to be in the midst of all the action. So if that's not available, it's not a good idea for Winter to be in there. They're going to concede this one, and it's only the Mountain Drake. This is not a stacking Mountain Drake, so they can afford to give up that 6% armor magic resistance. Won't cost them. They just want to get it off the map.
Yep, and they do get some farm for their troubles. They're able to send Gorka to safely farm up top lane. Maybe able to get a plate for himself too. There's a teleport burn to try and stop that from happening. DNA in a little bit of trouble in mid lane here. If he gets taunted or Winter walks up, he's going to go down. You see the headbutt, you see the pulverize. The Scatter the Weak onto the Nidalee isn't going to be enough. Fnatic going to pick up that kill. So patient play from Barrage, just sitting in that bush. Winter flies out with the Hex Flash and takes down DNA. Now Hunter walking into a 1v3. You can't do that, buddy. Get the heck out of there. Zooming away with his Crystal Spire. He'll be fine, but little too overeager from this Skarner.
Gotta be a little bit careful just, walking into the mid lane there. I know Galio is made out of stone, and this particular skin's kind of shiny, but that wasn't a Crystal Spar. You don't want to be anywhere near there. And he just gets pushed out. Doesn't have to blow anything for it, though, so that's pretty decent, and I don't think they lose too much. They don't have the damage yet, but at least they stem the bleeding, because DNA is so far ahead of APA right now that APA can't lane effectively. He needs to constantly call in backup just to stay in his lane 1v1 right now.
Yep, that's a 700 gold lead in that lane despite the extra assist onto APA. So DNA is the stronger champion there, is the stronger carry. It's actually even on gold overall here. At this time last game, we saw Barrage with a slight edge. So Mirage having a cleaner early game here. They also do have both dragons so far, so they are going to be the one pressuring the Soul earlier this game. They're going to be the ones looking to try and close this out if they can. And so I think if you're Mirage, you're thinking we are doing better than we did last time. Here's a play onto bot lane. They're going for PCL, but Camille with that hook shot, just way too easy to get out of any trouble.
Mirage isn't necessarily behind right now. It does feel like they're struggling a little bit in momentum, but they're actually dead even in gold. And this is what happened in game one of the series so far, which was that Barrage kind of just patiently waited out the early game there. We were getting a little bit nervous that they were falling off, but then they just came in absolutely huge here. And this time, I don't feel like they fall off necessarily quite as hard as they did in game one. So being patient here is fine. They just need to wait for those critical late game fights where when they win a fight, they not only get a whole bunch of gold, but they can rotate onto massive objectives as well. It is the ocean map, so stacking ocean drakes, 4 ocean drakes with Ocean Soul is absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, imagine an Ocean Soul Alawi and an Ocean Soul Skarner, and an Ocean Soul Leona for that matter. That's the stuff of nightmares, and that's a problem. That Alawi, by the way, just picked up solo first brick gold in the top lane. Dragoon getting himself a nice payday. No one there to defend the turret, so he's just going to snag that for himself. And this Alawi, not really as behind as you would hope. You're not really going to be able to do that Camille Galio play for much of this game with the Alawi being where it is right now. Here's a play onto Roy. You see that Leona exceptionally tanky with the spear not connecting. He's not going to go down. He is still in a bit of trouble, has to burn the flash. Another spear goes wide. Roy going to get himself the safety. It's a trade of Leona flash for Alistair ultimate, so longer cooldown burned by Mirage. Good aggressive play from Fnatic. And now they're just going to steal this entire jungle.
And I'm not sure if I saw that right. It looked like Meech was the one who popped the the blast cone there. Either way, it put Roy in quite a bad spot, unfortunately. Not having the flash though won't hurt too much because of the Hex Flash available for Roy, but it will certainly slow things down. And there is a major objective on the map right now, and that is the Herald. They lost the first one here for the side of Barrage, but they're probably going to at least try for the second one.
Well, here's an aggressive play going in. You know that the Unbreakable Will is down. Here's the heroic entrance to try and defend Winter. They're going to knock up Hunter. He's going to flash over the wall. The Scatter of the Week connects onto Gorica. A spear hits Roy, but that's a couple key cooldowns burned. Once again, no Impale used with Dragon coming up in a minute.
Hey, so they just are going to reset after this.
Yeah. All right.
And, yep. The ultimate came out of Barrage. So Mirage is now in a really solid position to pick up their second Herald should they want to. They do have to keep in mind, though, Dragoon no teleport. So Dragoon is going to stay in this bot lane and keep on shoving. They risk a 4v5 around Herald. So they might just opt to give it up and take the turret instead, because you take Shelly so that you can take turrets or apply pressure. If you can just straight up take a turret in exchange for Shelly, it's not a bad trade by any means.
We also have this Dragon coming up in 30 seconds, and I think Mirage probably cares a little more about that one at this point. If you could trade third Dragon for Herald, you absolutely do that. Puts you on Soul Point before 20 minutes, and it means that every Dragon from here on out is a must-win fight for Barrage. I think an Ocean Soul is almost insurmountable in this game. I mean, anything can be overcome with the perfect play or the perfect engage, but it just makes it so much harder. So Barrage need to be thinking about this. They need to start taking these dragons seriously. They cannot afford to give over an Ocean Soul. They need to be in position. They have PCL in top lane, so that means that Mirage is going to have the lead in the start on this dragon. And here's an Impale onto this Nidalee. Fnatic gets pulled in. The Unleashed Power, that's an immediate kill. It's a re-engage onto Meech by Winter and Gorica, but he's able to get out of there, uses an excellent flash. The fight's onto Roy. Roy goes down. The Hextech Ultimatum onto DNA. DNA gets erased by Gorica and PCL. A two-man knockup by Winter onto Hunter and Meech. A stun onto Meech as well. And now this Kai'Sa going to fall. It's a chase down from Gorica. Hunter, the last man standing. Pie Lord gets the hook shot, gets the kill, gets the ace for Barrage. It's a 5-for-1. They get the Dragon, they get the fight, and they are now in a commanding position.
A repeat of game one here. Barrage quietly biding their time. You know, they look like they're struggling. It looks like Mirage, you know, has a hope, has a chance, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, they win a fight. And that team fight was really big because Meech couldn't get in there. Winter and APA were able to zone the entire time, and PCL Gorica, they just got to shred through the front line however they wished. And
that was so close. 12 health. Wow.
Themselves, they gave that one up because they were so confident, like they didn't even bother asking for Fnatic to even show up. So nice attempt from Roy. The Dragon take is not the end of the world for them there, because again, they already have 2 Drakes under their belt. More concerning is that team fight loss and whether or not they can bounce back from that. Their composition certainly can, but we've seen that Mirage themselves have struggled sometimes to really execute their composition to the fullest.
Yeah, I mean, in that fight, it's kind of hard to think about what specifically went wrong for Mirage. I mean, they used the Skarner ult and the Impale. They got Fnatic at the very start, but it was Skarner ult and Syndra ult to make sure that happened. Then you saw Meech having to use the Killer Instinct just to keep himself alive. Oh, goodbye, DNA. He gets taunted. He gets erased. That's a bushwhack. See you later, buddy.
He's just walking right through. He doesn't even care about the turret. Oh man, that's a nasty pickup. But on the bright side, it doesn't change too much here. They're not going to lose any major objectives for it. Baron is up, but it's a little early, and neither team's probably going to commit to it just yet.
Well, one other thing to point out, it did happen this game. We have a Moonstaff.
Oh yeah,
it's on the Nidalee. Very exciting. Love the Moonstaff. We've talked about it last game. I'm not sure anyone needs us to explain it. You can go check out Twitter if you want to learn anything.
Not the Aurelian Soul, but I believe Dardoch did this with... Was it on the Nidalee as well?
Yep, well, here's a fight going on to PCL. You see the stun onto PCL. You see the Zenith Blade. He's going to cleanse, but there's just too much lockdown, too much CC. They get the kill to start the fight off, but now they're stuck. Winter gets a two-man knockup. He pops his killer, Unbreakable Will, a little too late. He's going to go down as well. That's 2 free kills for Mirage. They're going to get this turret, and they're going to start knocking on Mirage's base. The recall's having to come in from Fnatic, from APA. On a 5-on-3 now, this inhibitor might be under fire.
Watch Gorica here, because if anything can turn this fight, it would be Inferno triggers popping off, but he doesn't have Winter to provide the peel that he normally has here.
Yeah, and so this inhibitor turret just going to fall. Now you see Hunter zoning away the rest of the team. This is a really early inhibitor for Mirage. The rule of thumb is you don't take those. Oh, here's an engage. You see the Alawi going down, APA going down low, but able to pop the stopwatch to keep himself alive. Now Dragoon is in. Look at that damage, but not enough to win the fight. His team has backed off. They give away 2 kills. It's a bit of an overstay. The respawn timer is a little too short, a little too fast at this stage in the game, and now you see Barrage saying, we got kills, let's go look towards this Baron, pathing over in that direction. They may just be able to take this.
There's not really that much Mirage can do. Yeah, you can poke with the Kai'Sa, with the Syndra, but they're not in position yet. DNA is only now backing. DNA actually was thinking about taking the inhibitor, and the indecision costs. It's too late for DNA to get there, and they should have just stayed, maybe take the inhib. Instead, they're not going to get either. And Barrage, despite having such a disparate start to that fight where they weren't quite there, they kind of fed in the dribs and drabs, they actually come out way ahead on that play.
Yeah, it's just an overstay. I don't think Mirage wanted that inhibitor, even if they could have gotten it. It's a really early inhibitor in a game where they weren't really far ahead, and those can be a disadvantage because it causes the minion wave to start pushing in. Your super minion denies you farm by killing the enemy minions and not letting a champion pick up that farm, and it means that those waves keep crashing in. It generates pressure, but when you do that, you need to be able to capitalize on that pressure very, very hard, which can be difficult against a double TP team, and especially a double TP team with the semi-global on a Galio. Someone can be farming bot lane and always be able to join a fight towards Baron. And so when they overstay, when they start pushing that inhibitor, they don't want it even if they can get it. And on top of that, they can't get it. They give away 2 kills. Those 2 kills then cost them the Baron. And just like last game, in a game that was kind of on a razor's edge, suddenly Barrage have a free Baron, they have a push going, and they are now in a commanding position once again.
Which is kind of important because we haven't been talking too much about it, but if you look at the turret score, there's a lot of standing gold here for the side of Barrage. Roy is looking for this. Are they actually going to commit to this?
Yeah, Hunter going in. You see the stun onto Gorica. He's going to dash out. You see Hunter still going, but he finds himself in the middle of 4. He's getting knocked up, knocked to the side. He gets damaged. There's an amazing Alawi ult into the back line. PCL diving in, Gorica diving in. There's tons of circles everywhere doing all sorts of damage. And that's just too many for Mirage to deal with. PCL, Fnatic, Gorica all just flying into the fight. As soon as Hunter goes down, there's nothing much else to worry about. They wipe the floor with Mirage. They get a 4-on-2. They still have the Baron, so they're now going to start pushing, and they may just be able to crack Mirage's base.
Well, they're just going to turn and burn for the Ocean.
Oh, yeah, Dragon. That's more important.
Yeah. That's big here. I mean, yeah, we're focused on Baron. That's still up for like another minute, the buff on them. But Ocean Drake is something that they want to make sure they pick up here. We spoke a bit about, the Moonstaff build here, but why not just get more healing for the rest of the team? Get Ocean and Moonstaff and just watch as Gorica refuses to die here. Can Hunter steal this? I think not.
No, it's a really tough steal, and it's kind of the same issue of there's just a lot of CC on Barrage to stop a Skarner from running in. It can be tough to deny a Leona or a Kai'Sa because they just have mobility, and you're going to have to time it really well, but a Skarner, he just has to walk at you, and that means a Galio taunt, a Galio knockup, always going to connect against a Skarner. Never going to be able to get in there. So even up on Dragons, the Baron buff is timing out relatively soon, but that's a huge Baron power play for Barrage. And they take a game that was close to even in gold, and suddenly they're up 6K at 25 minutes.
Are they going to get caught? They should be fine. And I want to talk a bit about that last fight and what it means here, because for the side of Mirage, that fight was actually a pretty good fight for them there. The way they pincered in, the way they managed to catch multiple targets, and the way Dragoon basically got to really get the tentacle slaps off in that fight, the leap of faith. And a lot of the members of Barrage just sat in the middle of that trying to kill people. So that was pretty close to maximal damage coming out of Dragoon. And they still lost that. And if we look at the items now, Fnatic, PCL, they've paid the Skarner tax. They have Quicksilver sashes, and they've been doing a great job of making sure Gorka doesn't get caught.
Yeah, here's a fight breaking out again. They go for the Impale, not able to find it. You see Hunter doing what he can. He gets the Impale onto this Galio. APA going to have to go golden. There's a leap of faith from this Alawi. It means that APA and Winter are going to fall. It's a 2-for-0 start to the fight for Mirage, and they're actually going to win this one. They're able to make it happen. The heroic entrance from APA means that he's leaping into his doom there. We just say they had a good fight and they didn't win it, and then they get a fight that looks a little more scattered and divided, and they do.
I've got a question. What Barrage was trying to do there? They started that fight. It was Barrage opting to, sure, they met each other in the bush, and then both sides kind of disengaged, and Barrage went, we can do this, but PCL was not with them. Sure, you can win a 5v5, but choke point when PCL is not there, that was a 4v5, not a 5v5, and they just couldn't finish anybody quick enough, and they throw a bit of a lead, I say, because they're still in a fairly decent position there. Yes, they lost that fight, but again, as long as they don't do that again where they do a 4v5, they should still be able to win a 5v5 when they can actually burst down priority targets like DNA, Meech, or Dragoon.
But that's also big for momentum, right? It's kind of one of those things that it's easy to write off as not a real thing, but in this series, if you're a Mirage, you had a good game one where you ended up throwing and giving away a Baron and you just couldn't come back after that. So to have a game two that looks like it might be going down the exact same path, and then to win a fight and get yourself going back on the right track can be huge. It can kind of reset your mental. It tells you you can win fights, you can make things happen. You see they're trying to go for it. Hunter actually popping that turbo chem tank to try to run at APA. He's one of the few members of Barrage that doesn't have a QSS, so trying to make something happen there, not gonna do it. And now these teams gonna back off. It looks like at this point we're going to be fighting around objectives more often than not. Dragon spawning in another minute and a half. Baron up in 30 seconds. Here's an engage from PCL onto Dragoon. The Leap of Faith comes in, as does the Hextech Ultimatum. But that is a winning fight for Dragoon, and PCL has to hookshot the heck out of there. He wants to get to safety.
That's a winning fight for Dragoon, but it's a losing fight for Mirage because Leap of Faith is their big ultimate that they need to play around here. And that's going to be down for the next minute here. Baron's going to be up in 5, so you could potentially see Barrage's turn and Burn try and get that Baron down. And if Mirage want to fight that, one of their big key ultimates will not be available.
Yep, and this is an awkward position for Mirage to be in because you see PCL in the bot lane generating pressure, pushing the lane. Dragoon doesn't have teleport, so if they're going to contest this Baron, Dragoon needs to be there, and that invites pressure from Mirage in that bottom lane. It's going to have to be DNA that goes to answer that, but Syndra kind of one of the key champions to fish for picks, fish for kills with the Scatter of the Week and that stun, so they're just going to 5-man it. You see pings going onto the Baron. Barrage is not there. They only have that one pink ward. With that down, they no longer have vision of this Baron pit. Hunter just going to start it up, and Barrage has no idea.
Well, they just dropped the blue trinket. They know it's being done right now. The question is, how are they going to get in there? Are they going to poke it down? Baron already down to less than 50% health here.
Yep. Pink ward is on the Baron, so Barrage does have vision of this. This isn't dissuading Mirage. They are still doing it. Here's the engage from Fnatic. Here's the engage from PCL. The heroic entrance knocks up 3, and it is a disaster for Mirage. That's the fight immediately. There's just no way to answer that. Hextech Ultimatum, heroic entrance, too much CC, too much damage. Gorka gets in the backline as well, using an offensive flash, and that's just a disaster for Mirage. Barrage punishing them for that Baron. Little disrespectful to stay on it when you know the enemy team can see you. They try it and they get punished for it. They lose 4, and you see Barrage now just pushing into the base. They get the delayed ace. They're taking this top turret. They're going to get the inhib. I'm not sure they can go for game with Meech and DNA back up and no super minions. Those two should be able to clear this wave, but Barrage should be able to back off and go for Baron or not. Looks like they're going for game. They do have a couple key ultimates still available. Here comes DNA. Gorka goes onto him and erases him. Meech now forced back to the fountain. That's going to do it. They get that kill. They answer that Syndra very convincingly. Roy's the next target, gets taunted up. It doesn't matter. The Nexus is going down. The Nexus is going to fall. Maybe APA goes first, but that is going to be the game in favor of Barrage.
What a way! What a way to just end it there. One unfortunate Baron play and everything goes wrong. And once again, PCL finding a flank in such a clutch situation and able to access the back line. Meech and DNA were the first ones out of that fight immediately, which was the reason why they were the first ones to respawn back in base. Unfortunately, they weren't able to clear the minions, the champions out, and the game, Barrage just seems to turn it on in the mid game and just end it so quickly there.
Yeah, and I want to point some attention to the damage grab. I think that's one of the funnier stories here. Maybe not funny, but just what happened here is Dragoon on this Alawi was able to put in so much work. The scoreline doesn't give nearly as much credit to this pick as it should have. He was there in these fights. He was getting those monstrous leap of faith, but there just wasn't enough peel onto Meech, onto DNA. One Leona and one Skarner cannot hold back the tide of Gorica on Samira, of APA on Galio, of PCL on Camille. Maybe they didn't use that Camille-Galio combo to punish Dragoon in a lot of fights, but they were able to use it for these team fights, picking off these priority targets, going past the Alawi. Just ignore that damage, heal through it, power through it, win the fight, ignore the Baron, end the game. A convincing win for Barrage. They are able to close out the series, and that means Barrage goes 8-0 in the Swiss stage, 4-0 match scores. That means they have punched their ticket into playoffs, and they have qualified with a first round bye. So we will be seeing them in semifinals.
Undefeated to semifinals. The only team, I think, if I recall correctly, Barrage, the only team that can say they have not dropped the game all the way to the semifinals. And we'll have to see if they are able to continue extending that 8-0 in a tournament filled with talent here. This tier 2 proving grounds, massive. You know, teams like Solafide, teams like Anu, and somehow Barrage has yet to drop a single one. This is just absolutely amazing.
Yep, and this roster doing what it came to do. This wasn't a super sweep series, you know? They weren't smashing early game and just rolling over their opponent, but it never really looked like they were losing either. It was games that went from even to 1 or close to winning to 1. So Barrage never really in the backseat, never kind of on the back foot. They were able to keep themselves in a position where they were in control. They could always win fights. There were a couple hiccups along the way, but they were still the ones that made it happen, made this series happen, and they were able to take their victory.
Anything that actually scares me more than a team which just is constantly sweeping from the early game, because you can see that Barrage is not a team that's relying on sort of win lane, win game conditions here. This is no lane kingdom. Can PCL dominate? Yes. Can APA dominate? Maybe, because he keeps playing these supportive picks. Can Gorica and Winter dominate? They certainly can. But is this the way they won tonight? No. It wasn't. It was through accruing their advantages and knowing their win cons, waiting for their power spikes, picking their time, their fights. They can afford to give up Drakes because they know which Drakes they should fight for, which neutral objectives they can fight for. And that to me shows not just the mechanical skill of the players, but sort of the cerebral skill of the players, which to me is a much scarier concept.
Yeah, and I think I'm on board with you with that. It'll be exciting to see how Barrage can do in the playoffs. But the good news from Mirage, despite falling here today, is that that's not all for them. They still have a chance to make their way into playoffs. They will be in a final best of, or not necessarily final, but they will be in a best of 3 tomorrow, round 5 of this Swiss format, where the winners of that matchup between Mirage and their opponent will be going into the quarterfinals, and the losers will not be qualifying. So Mirage has one more shot at redemption. They are a strong team. They looked better versus Mirage than any of Mirage's previous opponents, and I think they stand a really good shot at it. So we'll be looking out for them tomorrow, hoping for the best for them, because I'd like to see these two teams go at it again, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. Considering the level here, it'll be great. And you know what, Mirage, I feel like if you give them another game or two, like game 2 was looking even better than game 1. So maybe the next time they meet, game 3, they get better and better, and maybe they hand Barrage a defeat.
Yep. Well, That's going to depend on a lot of things. We'll be rooting for both of these teams moving forward. That was a fun series. Thank you all for joining us. For the last time tonight, my name is Coleslaw. Joining me on this cast has been Random Minion Caster. Our producer has been Galathinius or Gala or Cody. He goes by many names. He's been an excellent producer. Thank you for producing for us, Cody. This has been the Reason Esports Champions League, and we will see you all tomorrow.